Hi there guys, today we're going to talk about nested for loops. You may ask, what is a nested for loop? Well, a nested for loop is a for loop inside of itself. So it's going to have a for loop inside of another for loop, which is the same with nested ifs and other things like that. Anyways, let's go ahead and dive into this program. So in this program, as you see, I have a triangle printing out with a bunch of print statements, and it is as that. It is technically a 5 by 5 triangle, and we're going to do this with nested for loops instead. So let's go ahead and switch over here. The first thing is you got to figure out what variables you want. Being that we have a triangle, we need the height and the length of it, which we want to keep those the same for this example to work. And the other thing we also need, as you can see, in order to get this asterisk here for that tip of the triangle, we need 4 spaces there. So you also got to have something for spaces. So let's go ahead and do these as integers, and we're going to go ahead and do int h for height, L for length, and then S for spaces. Don't need to initialize those because those will be initialized in the for loop. So let's go ahead and go to our for loop. So first, we're going to start with the height, which is how long we want this program to go on, which is five revolutions, five loops, whatever you want to call it, which will give us our height. So let's go ahead and do height, or h, equals 5. The reason I choose 5 instead of 1 is just because how I have these how I'm going to have these variables relate to each other. There are other ways you can do it, but this is just the way I've chosen to do it. So then we're going to do h is greater than 0 because we want to count it down so it has 5 loops. Then we obviously need our decrement since we're counting down. So let's go ahead and do that. Don't forget your brackets. Like I've said in my previous videos, I like to comment on the end brackets just so I know what that end bracket goes for. Alright, so inside this is where we get into the nested for loop. We're going to do another for loop. This one's going to be for our spaces. Now, as you can see down here, the first one we don't need any spaces. So what we're going to do is set S equal to H, meaning the first time it goes through here, S is going to be 5. And what we're going to do is set S less than 5. What this causes, the first time it loops through this, is it's not going to put any spaces whatsoever, and it's going to kick out of this loop, and we're going to move on with the program, or with the code for a little bit. And it'll start to make sense as I get the rest of this code in. And then we're going to go ahead and do S increment, which I'll show you in just a sec why we're doing that. In this one, we need the brackets again. Okay, this is where we're going to actually put our spaces in. So we're going to do a system.out.print, and we're going to do, let's see, parentheses. We're just going to do a space. That's all we need for that one because that's our space for loop. So next thing we need is our for loop that actually prints the asterisk for us, which is going to be our length. So we're going to go ahead and do for, and we're going to do our length. This one I'm actually going to have counting up, so because just how I have it. Like I said, there are many ways you can do this. So we're going to go ahead and initialize this to 0. Then we're going to do L is less than H. This is the reason I have it starting at 0 and counting up. It's because I want it to go until it hits 5. I mean, you could have it start at 5 and then have it count down to 0, and that would probably still work. So we're going to go ahead and do our increment here. Then in this loop, we're going to do our system.out.print, and we're going to have it print our asterisks. And this one, you don't want any spaces in it. Okay, so that's pretty much all the code. Now we need one more thing, which is our new line. Because right now, as these run, they're still all on the same line. So we're going to go outside of this loop, and we're going to put another system.out.print ln for the new line, and we're actually not going to have it print anything. There are other ways you can accomplish this, but this is just the way I've done it so far. I mean, you can do your escape sequence n to do new line, or you can do this. And the reason we have it out of here is when this executes, if it prints spaces, it's going to be on one line, and then this is going to start right off where the spaces left off. And then once we've done both of those, we need to go to our next line for the next line of the triangle. So now that we have all this, we're going to go ahead and run this. I'm going to show you how exactly it works. Hold on, let's cancel that and let's clear this so you can see that it worked. Okay, here we go. And there you go. It just printed that triangle. And the reason it does it is you go into this for loop, technically with these other for loops. So yeah, as we go into this for loop, that's our height. We go to this for loop, and it's going to see the first time we don't need any spaces. So it's going to be s equals 5, because that's starting at 5. And then so on and so on. So it's not going to print any spaces. And this time, since this is starting at 0 and counting up to 5, it's going to print 5 of these. Then we're going to go to the next line, and it's going to go back up to this for loop right here. And when it does that, it's going to decrement h, so we're going to be at 4, or h equals 4 this time. And when we go back in here, s is going to equal 4, so it'd be 4 is less than 5, which is true. So you execute this once, because once you increment it back, or increment it from 4 to 5, it's no longer true, and you completely bypass that for loop and go to the next one, and so on and so on. Anyways, guys, I hope this helped you. If you guys ever have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments. Other than that, hope you enjoyed and have fun.